This is extremely good news for the St. Louis Blues as going into the first day of training camp, we get huge quotes coming from the media and Jim Montgomery giving two key players a lot of praise, which will have Blues fans fired up for their breakout season coming through this year. We're going to break down these quotes. The two players Blues fans are going to be ecstatic to see back in action, and so much more later on this episode. Before we get into that, if you're part of the 53.6% watch and you haven't hit the sub button yet, but you want to stay up to date on everything to do around the St. Louis Blues, make sure to go down and hit that free subscribe button. It helps a bunch, and in return, we'll give you daily updates from all around the team. But with that, Darius, let's just get straight into it today, where we do know hockey is back. The St. Louis Blues opened their training camp today, and we're seeing a lot of action coming from a lot of players that are going to have fans fired up. Now, you can pause this, read through. Group A and Group B took different shifts on the ice and just worked through a lot of stuff. But this is coming straight in where we're coming from Lou. He said, yeah, Dylan Holloway's got that speed going. Now we know Dylan Holloway went down with a bit of a brutal injury, missing the playoffs, and we do have quotes from Jim Montgomery and Dylan Holloway, and even more coming from another player. But what is your initial thoughts on just Jim saying, hey, he looked like he didn't miss any time? It was good, second, third effort. I think it's contagious, and he was really good today.
Yeah, and a pretty significant injury for Holloway as well. And excuse the setup for the next couple of days, guys. I am traveling to watch the St. Louis Blues since I see the comments, and a lot of people think I wouldn't go to training camp. But in all seriousness, hockey is back. And Dylan Holloway, the interesting storyline that not a lot of people are talking about heading into this year is it was a significant injury, and he was going to miss a lot of time. He would have only returned if the St. Louis Blues made the Stanley Cup final. And now, how does he factor into training camp? How good is he feeling? How much has he been skating through the summer as he continued to recover from that injury? I was assuming, if he was going to be back in time for the Stanley Cup final, that he'd be able to get his conditioning up and he should be fine. But now we get our answer. He's flying around out there. Everyone's feeling pretty good. He's poised to have a dominant season. I mean, if you look at his point totals from last year and everything that he's done, taking steps forward season after, really arriving on the scene a couple playoffs ago with the Edmonton Oilers, I can only imagine what he was going to do for the St. Louis Blues in the playoffs if he were to play last year. So I think he's going to take this season by storm. He's going to be one of the best, most dominant players on this team, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And I wouldn't pay any mind to some of the lines just yet. Obviously, they're split into two different groups. The coaching staff does this for a reason, to kind of see how certain guys are working with different players and on different lines, different assignments, stuff like that. But and how well they're skating, the conditioning and all that. But once we start to see some cuts in a couple of days, it's going to be interesting to see, where he factors into the lineup. We have a pretty good idea if you look at all the advanced analytics, but it's going to be interesting to see how he factors in and, what his line does this year.
And I mean, the big thing is just looking through. He didn't look like he missed anything. I think you're going to see a better Dylan Holloway this year. It seems like everything is pushing for an even bigger breakout than we've seen last year, putting up 63 points in 77 games. Now, the big thing with Dylan Holloway, we know he's going to get a hefty payday at the end of the season or at some point as he is going into hitting the free agency. Right now, Scotiabank has him at 8.2. And Darius, we've talked about this time after time. We know going into next year, as of I think it's September 15th, 8-year contracts are getting abolished from the NHL. If you own the rights of a player, you can sign him to a max of 7, free agents to 6. But the big thing is, looking at this, would you be shocked if Doug Armstrong in his final year looked at Dylan Holloway and said, hey, let's get this 8-year done. Let's lock you up, have you with this team for the next foreseeable future? Or do you think maybe they go for a bit of a shorter term just to lock him up for long term later?
Well, I think that, for the team, this is the last chance to lock up any players to 8 years that are, under contract already. So that's very interesting in and of itself. The team wants to do that, but I don't think that works for the player. And I don't think it works for a lot of players around the league right now. Look what's happening with Kirill Kaprizov. And again, he's not the same type of player. He's not on that level yet. We don't know, what the ceiling really is for Dylan Holloway, but he's not on that level yet. But, look what is happening with Kirill Kaprizov. Look what's happening with Connor McDavid. Artemi Panarin hasn't re-signed yet, right? Like a lot of these guys want shorter term deals where they can maximize their earnings. And I think Dylan Holloway is no different. He's shown that he's going to be a top line producer or a second line producer, whatever line he's going to be on, but he's going to be a top 6 producer in the lineup this year. And that he wants to be paid for that. He only makes $2 million. It's ridiculous with some of the point production that he's been able to produce for this team. So it's going to be very interesting to see what the contract looks like. There's no world to me that it's going to be an 8-year contract. There's no way that the player wants that. His agent doesn't want that. And I think the team would be okay with a shorter-ish term. You don't want to do like 2 or 3 years or anything like that, or even walk him to UFA status or anything along those lines. But something in the 5-year range, 4-year range, something like that, I think would be fair for both parties. But to expect a lot of these players to go 8 years, especially with the rules changing, or even 7, once the rule changes, these players, their agents, they're getting smarter. Things are about to change around the league with the salary cap continuing to go up so much. They're only going to sign for a handful of years.
And I think the big thing is we know Broberg is also going to be a big priority going into the season, but we do get one more coming, that Jimmy Snuggerud looks awesome. Now, the big talk around Jimmy Snuggerud was, can he go out and produce like we've seen last year at the end of the season, going into the postseason, where he did look perfectly fine in the top 6, over half a point a game, 4 points in 7 games, and 4 points in 7 playoff games. Seeing that Jimmy Snuggerud is looking better, putting on weight, looking just as fast, I think there is a world where we're going to see, and I can't see Monty looking at Snuggerud and saying, hey, you dominated last year in the playoffs, in the regular season. There's no way they split him up in the top line. But do you think it's just a little more reassuring seeing that he's really standing out going into the first day of training camp?
Well, we talked about it in our last video, how we think that the second line is probably solidified at this point. So you would imagine that Snuggerud is going to be on the first line if you do the basic math there, right? So I think that, Snuggerud is going to be on the first line. He is going to be effective. You alluded to it already that, he put on a ton of weight this offseason. He's coming in heavier. That was a big question mark. Yes, he was putting up points, but he needed to put on more weight heading into this year to be able to compete at the NHL level consistently, at least. Obviously, the NCAA is a completely different beast. You're playing less games. He was already one of the best players in the NCAA, right? Now you're coming to the NHL and full time. So in that small sample size, yes, teams didn't have the scouting report on him. He was able to put up some decent points, half a point a game player in the regular season and the playoffs, right? But now he's put on that weight. I think that's a big factor, and something that also shows that he's taking it seriously and he wants to be a top line producer for the team, not just on the team side of things, but the player himself wants to take on this challenge and he's ready to do that. So I think he's poised to have a really good season too. We were doing projections in the middle of the summer. I think it would be crazy if he put up less than 40 points at this point, just based on like how much we've seen at the NHL level already, and the fact that he is heavier. He seems to be ready to go, and he's going to be playing with a guy, presumably on the top line like Robert Thomas, who's unbelievable and going to have another great season. So I think he's poised for another really, really good season.
And I think on top of that, he will be poised for a great season, but also a name to watch during the Calder race, where we're going to see him make and play in this top 6. But Blues fans, what is your thoughts? If you caught the game, let us know who stood out the most to you guys. If you're going to any of the practices or open rinks, whatever they're doing right now, let us know when you're going. Let us know all that down in the comments. And speaking of comments, let's go straight into comments of the day, where we get it from Blues Hockey Fan. He says, I'm an Aussie Blues fan for the past 30 years and so damn happy he signed. Let's go Blues, all the way from Australia. And it's awesome to see the Blues team just taking over the rest of the world. Let us know where you're watching from. Is it from Australia? Is it from Sweden? Are you watching in St. Louis? Let us know down in the comments, and you could be featured on Comments Day. While you're down there, leave a like, subscribe, share this with your friends. We'll be back another episode, so keep your eye for that. But I've been your host, Mark, with my co-host, Darius, and take care.